Exactly. The largest threat right now to us in the world is radical Islam. And all they want to do is bring up speaker after speaker to talk about how Donald Trump hurt their feelings. That is ridiculous. There are more important things than your feelings right now, like maybe your life, like maybe getting killed in a hatchet attack or being blown up or shot to death by radical Islam, and the fact that the Dems want to take your guns away and not give you the ability to protect yourself from those radical jihadists.
Okay, Joe Biggs and David Knight there at the DNC. We will look forward to more coverage from you. Thanks for joining us. After the break, Tommy Robinson is coming up. We're going to delve more into this beheading in Normandy. We're going to talk about the religion of peace and if the French people, if the German people will finally have some kind of reaction to this horror. We'll be back on the Alex Jones Show. Don't go away. Final hour of the Alex Jones Show. We got Tommy Robinson coming up. Of course, we had yet another horrific attack in Normandy, France today. A priest beheaded, another hostage in critical condition. Thankfully, the police in that area were able to respond quickly and shot the two assailants dead. But of course, it's just the latest in a long line of attacks. We had the axe attack on a train in Germany. We had the machete attack on the streets of Germany. We had the Syrian migrant suicide bomber who blew himself up outside a restaurant bar after he had tried to enter a music festival. Thankfully, he only succeeded in killing himself. That attack could have been far worse. And then today's outrage. But of course, our governments, as I've said, are more outraged about xenophobic comments on Twitter than they are about Islamists killing us every single day. Let that sink in. The amount of resources, the amount of attention they're devoting to hunting down alleged racists who make mean remarks on social media. Again, that gets the visibility. That gets the play in terms of mainstream media narrative. What doesn't get the play, or doesn't get any attention whatsoever in this conversation about why we keep being attacked, is the fact that in France, Muslims, 35% of them, across all Muslims living in France, support suicide bombings. 42% of Muslims aged 18 to 29 support suicide bombings. So don't tell me that it's a tiny fringe radical minority. Yes, the ones who actually go out and slaughter people are, but the support network around them, the Islamist buffer zone around them, as we saw with Abdeslam in Molenbeek, Brussels, they protect them, they support them. This problem goes way deeper than, quote, jihadists, as we see in Germany with the story I mentioned earlier. A group of 6 Muslims, again, go to this nudist bathing pool, start chanting Allah Akbar, start harassing all the people there, start saying, you're all sluts, we're going to exterminate you. Again, this is cultural enrichment. This is diversity. This is refugees welcome. Attacking the very core, supposedly progressive principles of the carefree lifestyle that leftists want to lead. But of course, they're okay to do it because in the Oppression Olympics League table, they rank above everyone else. I mean, I made the point in my video yesterday, which we're going to play later in the show if we've got time. Imagine if right-wing neo-Nazi skinheads were literally killing people on the streets of Europe every day. Imagine if they were going to events and harassing women, molesting women. Imagine if they were beheading imams at mosques throughout Europe. Imagine if they were driving trucks through crowds of Muslims praying on the street. What would the media narrative be? Would they analyze the hateful ideology that was inspiring, that was motivating those kind of attacks? Well, of course they would. They even try to do that when it has nothing to do with the right wing. So, of course, they would be completely obsessed with that. It would be right-wing apocalypse descending on the West. But when Muslims do it, we can't talk about that. We just have to hug a Muslim, keep saying that it's a tiny, radical, fringe minority, even though it's not. I mean, how many attacks is it going to take? Are we going to have 10 attacks a day for people to finally recognize that this is not a tiny minority, that this is not a religion of peace? Can we reform the religion of peace? Is it beyond that? Given that, nobody. They can't gather together 12 people to have a not in my name protest after these Islamic terror attacks, but they can have riots globally after somebody draws a damn cartoon. Can we reform Islam? Or is it completely impossible? We're going to talk about that with Tommy Robinson on the Alex Jones Show live after the break. Stay tuned. Breaking news at Infowars.com. We're back. It's the Alex Jones Show live. We've got Tommy Robinson coming up here in a minute. But first, I want to draw your attention to Operation Sleeping Giant. This is the special 28-hour broadcast that launches tomorrow to help us break the globalist stranglehold on free humanity. This is 28-hour broadcast, again, begins tomorrow with the main show, continues for 24 hours after the main show, and it's going to take place in the middle of Queen Hillary's coronation at the DNC, again on Wednesday, July 27th. Be sure to tune in for Operation Sleeping Giant, again, for that marathon broadcast. More details at Infowars.com. And we've got fresh in stock the Bill Clinton rape T-shirt. If you thought that Hillary for prison was a conversation starter, then just wait for this. Of course, this was the T-shirt that triggered Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks during that infamous confrontation with Alex Jones with Infowars at the RNC. It's going to trigger a lot of other people too. It's going to be a massive conversation starter. And of course, your purchase goes to support us, to support the outreach, to enable us to fly people at great expense to all these global media events to take on the mainstream media narrative face to face. So that is the Bill Clinton rape T-shirt. And again, of course, alleged rapist. It's not as if he flew around on a private jet with a convicted pedophile and underage sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein. That didn't happen. But get the Bill Clinton rape T-shirt at InfoWarsStore.com. Now we're joined by activist, author, Tommy Robinson. Of course, we've had this horrible attack today. Tommy, I just want to get your initial reaction to the beheading of the priest. You know, we've got BBC telling us that calling a terrorist might be politically incorrect. How much blood running through the streets of European cities will it take before our leaders actually identify the root cause of this problem?
I don't think our leaders are going to. I don't think it's going to come from our leaders. I think it's going to have to eventually come from the people. When we look at this most recent attack, it's daily now. It's daily. But still we've seen the same reactions. When you look at what's recently gone on, you look at all these terrorist attacks, you look at Nice, you look to Germany, you look to today, you look at everything that's gone on. There's still ships going and bringing more refugees in as this is happening. Every day. There's not like any steps have been taken at all to fortify or protect the citizens of Europe. We're still bringing people in. We don't know who they are. Was it yesterday, today? There's been a murder in the Calais jungle, in the refugee camp in Calais, where those people who are committing that murder and committing these robberies and committing this violence will soon be in the back of a lorry and jumping out of the M25 or jumping out in Todderton just 10 minutes from my house. It's still happening. Nothing's been done. So nothing's changed. And when you talk about what will our leaders do, Lee Rigby got beheaded. David Cameron set up a government task force who had a 5-year plan. And I remember saying at the start of that 5-year plan, we're going to be in a worse situation in 5 years. You're not going to solve anything. During those 5 years, we've allowed 2,000 British Muslims to go fight and train with ISIS. We've allowed 450 of them to come back. I believe today's terrorist was walking around with a tag on his ankle, electronic tag. He's a terrorist. He's already a convicted terrorist. We know he's a terrorist. What is he doing walking the streets of our cities with us waiting to be targeted?
No, that's right. I mean, the French Prime Minister Valls, a couple of years ago said, listen, we know these jihadists are coming in and out of the country. They're going to Syria to fight for ISIS. We're just going to let them back in because we want to overthrow ISIS. They're not attacking France or Europe. Well, now they are. You talked about the migrant attack. We've got people in these migrant attack camps hacking each other up because of their inner tribal differences, between Afghans and and Northern Africans. I mean, if they have that kind of behavior towards each other, even though they're all Islamists, I mean, Lawrence Southern went to the Calais camp and they were saying, yeah, we have actual ISIS supporters here. And what are they going to do when they come into the West? Well, we know what they're going to do because they're doing it almost every day. We got 21% of Syrian migrants, according to polls, support ISIS. 21%. We've got over 1 million, you know, coming into Germany. Not all of them are Syrian. A lot of them are economic migrants taking advantage of it. But 21% of the Syrians alone support ISIS. We've got 35% of Muslims living in France support suicide bombings. So when they say, oh, it's just a tiny minority, why are you painting, castigating all Muslims? Well, you know, Tommy, I made the point earlier. After somebody draws a stupid cartoon of Muhammad, they're out globally rioting. But after every single Islamic terror attack, how many Muslims are out on the streets protesting? How many of them are out there saying, not in my name? Basically none.
There's none. And you've just made the point again, like, for example, the attack recently on the train in Germany, yeah? I spoke to people I know and I see on their day-to-day. I said, did you hear about the attack last night? Did you hear about the attack yesterday? No. I talked to them then about the pregnant Polish woman who was butchered to death by another Syrian refugee. No. People haven't even heard of them, yeah? So the media and when the media plays a clever game by just using headlines, like Syrian migrant killed by German blasts, most people only read the headline. Most people only read and flip through the news and read the headline. So I heard you making the point just as I was about to join this show. Imagine 2 white men, English men, or European men, French men, or German men, walked into a mosque, got the imam out, and chopped his head off. Imagine the outcry, the uproar, the world uproar in every country, the protests, everything. Imagine the reaction to it. And then there's nothing in comparison. And then when we talk about, so then we hear the argument that, well, actually, the Polish pregnant girl who was murdered, she was in a previous relationship with this man. That's where we differ. We are bringing in, well, Angela Merkel brought in 1 million young fighting-age Muslim men who are culturally different to us, morally, ethically, their belief system is the opposite to ours. Right and wrong are completely different. There was a girl in Sweden who had petrol poured over and was burned to death because she finished a relationship with an Afghan refugee. Because in his country, you can't finish that relationship. We're bringing in people and putting ourselves in danger, putting our communities in danger. We have no hold over who they are, what their beliefs are. As you said, when you go through the statistics, it's terrifying. And the demographical change that's currently happening in Europe, America should be watching, the world should be watching, you should be learning from what's happening. But still we see the world divided where we still have these people. I had today a BBC journalist message me 20 minutes after a beheading of a priest, messaging me saying how disgusting it is that hate crime is on the rise. Like I'm supposed to be bothered or care that someone's got a dirty look on a train or on a bus. Because that's the problem. And they make more of a deal is made by the media. Just recently you had 2 men in England who put some bacon on a mosque door handle. They've been sentenced to 9 months in prison. They're in prison now, probably being beaten by Muslim gangs because they control our prison systems, because our prison systems are like ISIS training camps. They're being beaten for simply putting bacon. Now, it's a pretty stupid thing to have done, yeah? And so is hate crime, but it's speech. No one's getting hurt. But yet we're coming down and stamping down, the authorities will crush anyone who dares to do any of these things. Now, I don't see I get so angry and so frustrated daily at what's happening and the path we're being led down, because we're all going to have to pick up the pieces of this mess that our liberal, pathetic, weak leaders have got us into. And they're still continuing. It's not like, and the problem you'll face, which Europe will face, and it's going to happen, and God forbid, I don't want it to happen, but it will happen. At some point, Europeans are going to react to this. Now, the reason why they react to it in a disgusting, barbaric way, which will happen, is because when there's no light at the end of the tunnel, when no one sees a political solution, when they don't see their police force or their military or their leaders or anybody stepping in to deal with this problem, to put their citizens' safety first, first and foremost, the safety must be of European citizens, not helping people from Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, people who despise our culture and our way of life. Your job as our leaders We're using you're elected by us to keep us safe. You've failed to